I almost said this is from a listener. What will the new Pope make of things, in your opinion?
You mean the Jewish Pope? You know, he's an Argentine Iranian. Did you know that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, most of Brazil and Argentina was actually originally had many of the settlers were Iranians. They were Jews from Spain and Portugal who settled there because they were free to light candles at Sabbath. Happy Passover. So yeah, I think, you know, it's nice that he's a modest man, you know. It's, you know, I don't know anything about him, but it's also, I had a spontaneous kind of desire to read Borges before they made an Argentine Pope. So I'm not saying I have extra sensitive perception. You know, there might be something to it. I mean, I don't know, maybe you did too. I mean, if everybody had a spontaneous urge to read Borges, because they're feeling the Argentine Pope coming down the Pope Pike.
What do you remember about birthday celebrations in Romania?
Well, we didn't have them. We had... Romania celebrate your name day saint. So Saint Andrew, which should be the one after my name, would be January 1st. And that's the patron saint of Romania as well. So you didn't do too well that way. But an awful lot of them. So we didn't have, you know, we didn't celebrate, you know, the actual birthday. I didn't hear about that till I came over here.
Someone would like for you to talk about Cuba. A little bit.
Well, it's a book I wrote. I went to Cuba. Another pope, actually. Another pope was going to Cuba, and we wanted to get there before the pope did, because they figured that if we got there before the world press, we could probably write some good stories. This was '96, and I went to an NPR producer and the photographer who'd never been out of the States, and he was very optimistic and happy to be in Cuba because Cuba is so photogenic. You can't take a picture in Cuba that doesn't look right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my prose wasn't so optimistic, but you know, various things happened, and we were there, and we did some great stories, including an interview with Orlando El Duque Hernandez, the great pitcher for the Yankees, who then defected not long after that, and you know, became a great, you know, American player. At the time we visited with him, he was teaching throwing the ball around in a mental hospital for $9 a week, you know, because Castro had forbidden him to play baseball. So he was really depressed. So I asked him actually what he thought about his brother Livan, which had just been made MVP of the Florida Devil Rays the year before, and he said, well, you know, he's got some stuff to learn. There's this guy on a dirt floor, you know, sitting dirt poor, you know, with his, you know, looking depressed, and he thinks, you know, he's going to teach his brother. Well, it turned out he did. There was a, you know, so, yeah, it was an interesting trip. And then, of course, the world press did go to Cuba when the Pope did. And then in the middle of that, the Monica Lewinsky story broke, and everybody left Cuba and went for the blue dress.
Did you get much scrutiny from Cuban officials because you were formerly from an Eastern Bloc country?
Yeah, I did, but not because of what happened was simply that we had a Salvadoran translator, and the time the Cubans were making a big deal about terrorism because some Salvadoran had blown up something in downtown Havana, which I still don't know what that was, but also because we were writing stories, and we had gone there under the false pretense that we were going to the film festival. And actually we were doing stories, we had all these microphones and cameras, you know, you remember all that cumbersome stuff from the 20th century. You know, so they were watching us, so at some point we were put under arrest, you know, so to speak, in the hotel lobby. And a Cuban major came to epaulets, to stars, and he said, oh, he wants to interview us all personally. I remember I talked to him, I said, well, I want my translator, who was, Ariel, and he said, no, you can speak Spanish because you're from Romania. So I said, yeah, well, maybe I can speak Spanish. And he says, well, yeah, you can, because, we loved the Romanians. We hated the Russians when they were here. But Romanians are okay. So, we sort of talked like that for a while until Ariel's husband, our translator, who was actually the BBC correspondent in Havana, called some guy with more stars on his epaulets. But let us go.
You said earlier in your talk this evening that the totalitarian system is a joke. And earlier today, I heard you mention Milan Kundeра's book, The Joke. So, are they in on the joke?
Oh yeah, everybody I know is in on the joke. Nobody believes in that system. The idea that people out there are a bunch of communists who believe in, these sort of ideas of this ideology just wasn't true, because nobody did. Everybody followed the formulas, and they did what they had to do because they wanted to keep their jobs and live in relative security, but actually everybody sort of shook their heads. And the most popular form of communication was the joke. So people told jokes all the time. They told jokes about the Ceausescu's before they were actually executed. There was a joke about this guy in the crowds, hailing him, shoots him, and misses. And so the secret police picks him up and they're torturing him, and finally one of the secret policemen says, how could you miss? You're so close away. He says, it was the crowd. They kept pushing me. Shoot him, shoot her, because Hitler is like.
Well, I would like to, I really believe that we should get a few questions from you, right? We've had a couple of these questions. These are great questions too, but I know some of you have questions, and maybe we can get the house lights up just a little bit.
There's a bit of reverb here. I don't know if
Yeah, there's a little ring. I don't think it's me. Is it me?
No, I think it's...
It might be me.
This could be the Cubans.
It's just a joke. Anyone? Don't raise your hand and be the first one and be a totally crazy person. Okay, we'll take a chance.
I'm wondering what you think about drones, and would you be tempted to get one in Arkansas?
If you can't hear that, he's wondering if Andrei would be tempted to get his own drone.
No, I don't. And I don't think they should be flying overhead. I think you should have the right to shoot them down. They shouldn't be around. Yeah, of course everybody's going to make one. You can make them out of a lawnmower, It's not a big deal. You put a camera in the flying lawnmower and you can look at everybody's house and listen. This has been going on for a long time. It's not, like I said, there are no secrets. What are these things doing except making noise and threatening you? I don't think you should. I think that's a very indiscreet way of spying on people. I think the better way is just write them an email and ask them what they do.
Just follow them on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. What do you need drones for? Those things are, unless they're armed and really ready to kill you, what are they for? They're gonna look at you, while you have sex with your animals. So I should pass time where I come from.
Yes, right back there.
I'm wondering what your thoughts are since you mentioned communism. We have spent about 60 years in this country fighting communism, and it seems that we have been fighting the boogeyman.
Indeed.
And I just wonder, because it has influenced us in so many ways and continues to influence, I wonder what your thoughts are about that fight. Will it ever be over?
Well, to my proto-Marxist mind, the fight was about technology. It was about developing technologies that could take care of business in case that thing was real. But since we knew that thing wasn't real, and they knew that we could beat them at it. There was a pretense kept up that was very useful and very lucrative to people in those businesses of making weapons and surveillance. And it probably got us further in the technological arena, because that's where great technologies are developed in war, in war tech, you know. So I don't think anyone took the ideology seriously. I mean, the idea of communism as a kind of boogeyman, you know, I mean, on the other side of the curtain, we always thought, I mean, how could they possibly be threatened by our soldiers whose uniforms are way too big for them, because nobody can figure out how to make them the right size, you know. You know, in 1963, when we were in the Cuban Missile Crisis, all of us in the, you know, elementary school, they gave us these wooden bayonets, and they made these straw figures that said Yankee on them, and they made all the kids run at them with the bayonets. You know, even then I thought this is just about the silliest thing ever. And, you know, get under your desk because the atom bombs are coming. I mean, those things are real, but I mean, you know, what kind of insanity would make anyone actually let this technology loose? I don't think anybody did. And in fact, all the rhetoric in the communist countries was about peace and so on. There's all this stuff that nobody actually thought was happening, you know, was real. I mean, we all lived in this, you know, I don't know, this manufactured virtuality, you know, for the weapon makers.
Does a country need an enemy? Do people need to have a boogeyman, an enemy?
I don't think you need to have a country. You know, the whole, you know, the height of nationalism in Europe, it began in the 16th century when there were lots of little fiefdoms that had armies and defended themselves. And then, you know, they got bigger. And now, you know, I mean, there was always, you know, a kind of art of deception, but also of emotion, you know, because people do get their hearts terribly stirred when people sing and to recite patriotic poems. The entire war in Yugoslavia was all about national epics and about poetry. You know, your great, you know, criminal Serbian leader was a poet. You know, poets are sort of the problem, not... Well, they are. And Kundera, again, says this very well in a book called Life is Elsewhere, where he makes a real good case against poetry. He says, well, the poets will help the tyrants, and they will help that by pulling at your heartstrings and making people do irrational and insane things because they feel like they're taking revenge for something that happened 395,000 years ago. So yeah, I think, you know, we maintain certain kinds of rhetoric because they are helpful to some interests, you know, but I don't think they're, you know, they become very quickly obsolete in many ways when you think about it. I mean, the fact is that our legislative and our psychological regulation, you know, really is behind the technology all the time. And so we run to catch up with the technology with our rhetoric. We'd like our patriotism to be as good as our weapons, but it's not.